You've felt it before. The rising anger, the frustration that tightens your chest, the gnawing sense that the world is against you. You look at the chaos around you and feel an urge to resist it, to rebel, to fight back against everything that seems unfair, cruel, or unjust. Most people interpret this feeling as a sign of strength, as if standing in opposition to the world proves courage or moral superiority. You may have even convinced yourself that hating what is wrong, condemning what is unjust, or rejecting what offends you is a form of liberation. But what if all of that resistance is exactly the trap you are falling into? Because here is the hidden truth that rarely gets spoken. The very act of hating, of resisting, of railing against the world binds you more tightly than you realize. It is not rebellion, it is surrender. Not freedom, but servitude. Every ounce of fury, every whisper of resentment, every silent curse you carry is the world's own leash, tying your mind to its rhythms, its chaos, its illusions. The more you struggle against it, the more you are dancing to its tune, playing a role it has written long before you arrived. And yet, there is a way out, a shift so subtle that it seems invisible at first. The moment you begin to see that hating the world does not empower you but enslaves you, you open a space where clarity begins to bloom. You realize that what you once mistook for courage was actually a form of imprisonment, and what you took as moral high ground was just another form of attachment. This is not about becoming indifferent or cold. It is about awakening to a deeper understanding of life, where your energy is no longer consumed by opposition, but redirected toward presence, awareness, and strength that cannot be taken. So, if you stay with me in this reflection, if you allow yourself to pause and question the familiar urges to resist, you may begin to feel the first stirrings of freedom. And while you do, I invite you quietly to subscribe, share, or leave a comment, because by doing so, you help bring this conversation to other men who, like you, have been trained to fight the world and are only discovering now that the fight itself is the illusion. Before awakening to this truth, life feels like a constant battle. You wake up with a tension in your chest, a readiness to react, to defend yourself against every slight, every injustice, every irritant. The world seems like a vast enemy, a place designed to test your patience, to provoke your anger, to force you into endless cycles of frustration. You chase victories, seeking to correct wrongs and punish what offends, thinking that in doing so, you are asserting control, asserting your worth, asserting your freedom. Every argument, every insult, every debate becomes another brick in the wall you are building around yourself, isolating you from the flow of life, yet convincing you that this is strength. But then, slowly, the realization begins to emerge. The world is not the enemy. Hatred is not a sword. It is a chain. Every act of anger, every moment spent resisting is energy surrendered to the very thing you wish to escape. You begin to notice how much of your life has been consumed by reactions rather than presence, by judgments rather than understanding, by striving rather than being. The tension in your chest, the racing thoughts, the sleepless nights, they were never signs of strength. They were symptoms of servitude, and in that recognition, there is an almost paradoxical relief, a quiet dawning that the world never held power over you. Your hatred did. As this shift deepens, the transformation begins to manifest outwardly. People may notice it first, the calm in your voice, the ease in your movements, the refusal to be drawn into petty conflicts or dramas. Some call it indifference, others arrogance, still others detachment. But it is neither. It is the absence of compulsive reaction, the liberation from a script written by fear, anger, and social expectation. In its place, there is clarity, a quiet strength that does not need validation, a presence that does not need approval, a freedom that does not need rebellion. The world may still act as it always has, unpredictable, messy, and often cruel, but you move through it with a steadiness that surprises both yourself and others. And yet, This is only the beginning. The real power lies not in avoiding the world or hiding from it, but in seeing it fully without attachment, in engaging without being enslaved. You start to understand that every struggle you once fought against externally is now seen internally as a lesson, a mirror, a reflection of your own mind's conditioning. This awareness does not make life easier, but it makes life true. You begin to sense that freedom is not about controlling the world, but about mastering your own responses, your own attention, your own energy. And in this mastery, a new cycle begins. What was once resistance becomes engagement. What was once suffering becomes insight, and what was once slavery becomes power. As you begin to live without hating the world, a curious tension arises between how others see you and who you have truly become. Friends, colleagues, even strangers may whisper that you've grown distant, cold, or strange. Some may think you've surrendered, that you no longer care, that your absence of anger signals weakness or disengagement. They do not see the quiet transformation unfolding beneath the surface, the liberation of a mind no longer tethered to resentment or judgment. What appears to them as detachment is actually a profound engagement with life, a deeper attention that does not flinch at every insult or inconvenience, a presence that is steady amidst the storm. You notice that this misperception is both frustrating and liberating. Frustrating because the world has been trained to equate resistance with strength, anger with assertion, rebellion with independence. Liberating because now you are no longer playing that game. You no longer need their approval or recognition. Where once you might have argued, defended, or justified yourself, now you simply exist with clarity, unaffected by the need to be understood. This alone is a kind of power few recognize, because the world rewards noise, not silence, and reaction, not calm. You have stepped outside the rhythm that others unconsciously follow, and in doing so, you have discovered a freedom that cannot be given or taken. There is also an internal tension that arises from this change. The mind, trained to find enemies and rally against them, now discovers a void where battles once raged. You may feel discomfort, as if you are betraying yourself or the world, as if in letting go you are becoming passive. But this discomfort is merely the echo of old conditioning, the last grip of the belief that fighting is necessary for existence. Slowly, through observation and patience, you see that non-resistance does not equal inaction. It does not mean apathy or surrender to injustice. It means choosing carefully where your energy flows, acting from awareness rather than compulsion, and finding strength in discernment rather than in opposition. And in this process, a subtle shift occurs in how you relate to the world. Conflicts that once drained you are now seen as fleeting, illusions that do not touch the core of your being. You realize that the world, in all its chaos and cruelty, is not trying to harm you personally. It is simply itself, operating according to its own laws, indifferent to your judgment. To fight it, to hate it, is to feed it with your energy. To understand it, to observe it, is to reclaim your power. And in this reclamation, life begins to feel lighter, sharper, more vivid. You start to see that what appeared as weakness or withdrawal is actually the emergence of a freedom that no one can take away, a liberation from the chains you once mistook for your own courage. Now let us reconsider what you once believed about strength and power. You were taught that to be strong is to resist, to oppose, to conquer, to dominate your circumstances and assert your will against every slight or injustice. You were taught that to yield is weakness, that to let go is failure, and that submission to life is a surrender of self. Yet in this awakening, you begin to see that true strength does not roar or strike. It breathes, it waits, it observes. It is a power that acts without being acted upon, a force that moves with the current instead of against it. The world in all its turbulence becomes a mirror, reflecting not what you lack, but what you have already discovered, the ability to meet life without being consumed by it. Anger, once a trusted companion, is now recognized as a leash. Every flicker of resentment that used to ignite your energy now seems absurd, a phantom that tricks the mind into believing it is defending something essential, and yet it was never defending you. It was defending your illusions, the identity you had constructed around the notion of opposition. By releasing it, you reclaim the energy previously surrendered to the world's chaos, and in its place emerges a quiet, self-contained power. This is the paradox. What seemed empty, detached, or passive to the outside observer is in fact filled with vitality, filled with intention, filled with a freedom that cannot be measured by conventional standards of strength. Control, too, takes on a new meaning. You realize that your desire to manipulate outcomes, to bend circumstances to your will, was another form of servitude. The world always resisted, always surprised, always undermined the illusions of certainty you clung to. But by letting go of the compulsion to control, you discover the true influence lies not in forcing events, but in mastering your own mind, your own attention, your own presence. This is not resignation, it is sovereignty. And with this sovereignty, the world no longer binds you. You move through it unshaken, your focus intact, your actions deliberate, your energy undiminished by reactive struggle. Finally, freedom reveals itself as the ultimate reinterpretation. You once feared loss of comfort, status, recognition, or approval, and built your life around avoiding it. Yet when hatred, anger, and resistance fall away, you see that nothing external truly holds your essence. You are neither victim nor victor, neither slave nor oppressor. You are a participant in life who has chosen to inhabit each moment fully without the unnecessary weight of opposition. What once seemed like surrender is now discernment. What once appeared as withdrawal is now presence, and what once looked like weakness is now a quiet, unassailable power. The world, in all its beauty and horror, ceases to have dominion over you, because you have reclaimed yourself from the very chains you once mistook for strength. As this new understanding takes root, its consequences begin to ripple through every corner of your life, both seen and unseen. On the outside, people may notice a change, subtle at first, in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you occupy space. Colleagues might sense a calm authority where there was once tension. Friends might feel the absence of reactive energy that once fueled every interaction. Some may misinterpret it as aloofness, others as arrogance, yet none can deny that something fundamental has shifted. You are no longer tethered to the endless cycle of grievance and retaliation, no longer pulled into disputes or dramas that once defined your sense of self. Where before you measured worth by the battles you fought, now you measure it by the stillness you maintain amid them. Within, the transformation is far more profound. Without the constant drain of hatred, your attention sharpens. You see the world with clarity unclouded by judgment or resentment. Each moment is richer, each sensation more vivid, each interaction deeper. You begin to recognize the illusions that once seemed so real. The importance of approval, the necessity of proving yourself, the endless need to convince the world of your value. These no longer dominate your mind, they shrink into insignificance. Freed from them, your energy can flow into creativity, into presence, into thought and action, guided not by fear or anger, but by clarity and choice. Life is no longer a battlefield, it is a landscape in which you move with precision, awareness, and balance, touching the world without being consumed by it. This shift also recalibrates your relationships. People who were once close may struggle to understand you, feeling as though the person they knew has vanished. That is because the old version of you, the reactive, defensive, angry version, was a reflection of their expectations, a mirror of shared grievances and common resentments. As that version fades, the truth of your presence becomes apparent. Steady, grounded, unattached, and honest. Those who cannot recognize it may drift away, and that is their lesson, not yours. Those who remain are drawn not by shared fury, but by the calm, unshakable authority of someone who has discovered that life's power lies not in opposition, but in awareness. Your detachment is not coldness, it is the clarity that comes from no longer surrendering your energy to illusions that bind the mind. And yet, this freedom does not mean life becomes easier. Challenges remain, chaos continues, injustice persists. The difference is that you now meet these circumstances from a place of power rather than reaction. You no longer expend energy fighting phantoms. You direct it intentionally, choosing your engagements, conserving your strength, and observing without becoming entangled. Slowly, this changes the texture of your life. Opportunities appear where there was previously tension, connections deepen where there was previously conflict, and your own sense of fulfillment grows not from victories over others, but from victories over the illusions that once controlled you. Hatred no longer dictates your choices, clarity does. Anger no longer shapes your destiny, awareness does. And in this clarity, you discover a profound paradox. By letting go of resistance, you gain everything that truly matters: freedom, presence, and an unshakable sense of self that no external force can touch. As this transformation deepens, the effects become cumulative, almost imperceptible at first, until you notice a shift that changes everything about how life feels and flows. You no longer wake with the same tension, the same urge to react, the same exhaustion that came from fighting a world that was never truly against you. Each day begins to feel lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You move through interactions without the compulsion to defend, to argue, or to prove yourself. The quiet authority of presence replaces the noisy assertion of resistance. People may notice it, some admire it, some resent it, but it is irrelevant because your attention is no longer stolen by the world's approval or disapproval. Internally, this accumulation of freedom reshapes the mind. Where anger and hatred once consumed attention, you now find space for insight, creativity, and connection. Problems no longer trigger panic or reactive energy. They are observed, understood, and met with deliberate action when necessary. This is not passivity. It is engagement from a place of strength that cannot be shaken by provocation or circumstance. Your focus sharpens, your judgments clarify, and your capacity for joy, for simple presence, grows exponentially. You begin to see the intricate patterns of life, the subtle interconnections, the flow that was always there, invisible beneath the noise of resentment and complaint. On the outside, the contrast becomes more pronounced. Relationships shift, old conflicts dissolve, and your very presence changes the atmosphere around you. Those who thrived on drama or agitation may feel disoriented by your calm, while those seeking clarity and steadiness are drawn toward you. What once seemed like weakness, detachment, quiet, unflinching observation, is now unmistakably power. Your life begins to take on a rhythm that reflects your inner state rather than the demands of the world. And this ripple effect alters everything: decisions, interactions, ambitions, and even the simplest moments of solitude become rich with depth and awareness. And so the paradox fully unfolds. What once appeared as withdrawal was actually expansion. What seemed like indifference was profound presence. What looked like loss or surrender was, in truth, liberation. The man who hated the world, who fought, who resisted, has been reborn into a state of clarity and strength. He is not weaker for letting go. He is stronger for seeing. He is not lost for stepping away from the struggle. He is found in the fullness of his own consciousness. Life is no longer a battlefield, and he is no longer a slave. The liberation is quiet, intimate, and undeniable. It is a freedom that exists regardless of circumstance, an authority that requires no validation, a strength that needs no demonstration. In the end, what once seemed like struggle and opposition reveals itself as the very mirror through which freedom becomes visible. The man who hated the world, who burned with resentment and felt the weight of injustice pressing on him from every side, discovers that his chains were never made of circumstance. They were forged by his own resistance. And in that revelation, a profound paradox emerges. By ceasing to fight the world, he steps into a clarity that was always waiting, a power that no conflict can touch, a peace that no injustice can disturb. What looked like isolation now shines as sovereignty. What appeared as weakness now glows as unshakable strength, and what seemed like loss becomes the liberation he had sought all along. He walks through life differently now. Others may still misunderstand him, labeling him as strange, distant, or indifferent, but these labels no longer matter. He knows the truth of his own presence, the freedom of a mind that no longer surrenders energy to anger, the quiet authority of a soul untethered from illusion. Every decision, every action, every thought is measured not by reaction but by awareness. And this internal order creates a rhythm in life that is steady, reliable, and full. In this way, the world no longer dictates his state of being. He moves through it like water moves through the landscape, unresisting, adaptive, yet irresistibly powerful in his stillness. And this is where your reflection must linger, because the lesson is not abstract, it is personal. Hating the world does not free you, it enslaves you. Letting go does not weaken you, it strengthens you. Resisting does not assert your sovereignty, it binds you. The freedom, clarity, and strength that appear impossible from within the turmoil are revealed only when you release the urge to fight what is. In this surrender to awareness, life transforms. You become whole, not by conquering the world, but by reclaiming yourself from the chains you once mistook for courage. So pause for a moment and consider your own life. Notice where energy is spent in anger, resentment, or opposition, and imagine what it would feel like to reclaim that energy, to see the world without hatred, to act from clarity rather than reaction. And if this reflection has touched you, take a quiet step now. Subscribe to continue exploring these ideas. Share this insight with someone who may also be struggling with resistance, and leave a comment with your own experience, your own story of noticing, letting go, or awakening. Every comment enriches the conversation, every share spreads the reflection, and in doing so, you participate in a quiet revolution. The awakening of men who no longer serve the world through hatred, but live as masters of themselves, free and whole.